the microphone?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hopefully. Yeah, and also Josh plugged into the yes, that one. Plus, yeah, he plugged me with the
Oh, you want the, yeah, do you have USB-C?
Yeah.
Um,
oh, but no, for this computer. So I
okay,
plug it to-
so.
it's just I don't care all that much myself, but students they like having the nice camera.
Yeah, no, I'll have to go get the packet.
It's just on break.
No, his wife got COVID,
Oh, gee. All right.
so he's out for until he feels better.
Okay. Here's better. Because here I am. My mouse.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll do it. No problem.
Oh,
Oh, nice working. All right. Thank you. Okay, that one's working. Okay. Okay, it's good now. Yeah. Uh, please say yes. Please say yes. Please say yes. Yes. Okay. So, well, sorry about all of this. So, yeah, it's not going to have been recorded, but yeah, I've been talking for a very long time, so I don't want to start over. So I'll briefly say what I was saying there. So because you cannot even read my lips because of the mask. So what I was saying is the problem is information asymmetry. And when you have information asymmetry, you need to give some sort of signal in some other way to transmit the information. And yeah, for mechanics, it's yeah, it can be warranties or other, yeah, food quality maybe one too. So food quality, if you try to sell very good steaks, but then the very cheap steaks look exactly the same, and consumers cannot know at the grocery store whether it's a good quality steak or a bad quality steak, well, tough luck. They're not going to pay extremely high, even though we. So what you so yeah. By the way, I can ask you. So what should we do about quality that's unobservable, such as food quality? Is it enough for me to just write on the package, very good, excellent? So if you go to a very, very low cost hotel, sometimes it's going to be named Deluxe Plus Extreme Fancy Hotel. Is the title very informative or not? No, not really. So how can I transmit a costly signal? Oh, your generation should know this quite a lot. So you look at online reviews or you look at guides. So all of these things are written by people who hopefully have tried and are impartial observers to the quality of it. So for instance, if it's food, then you can just say, oh, well, if you want to sell organic food, but there's no label, then anybody could say it's organic food. But once you introduce a protected label, a label that you have to pay to obtain, and then people are going to come to your farm and attest that it's really the case, then it works. Then people are going to be willing to pay extra money for that. So in that case, that's so labels, guide. Michelin guide is one, so online reviews. Obviously, if your reviews are written by bots in other countries, then it doesn't work. So it has to be written by real people. Yeah, inspection is another one. So it's not good enough to say, by the way, it's clean, my mattress is perfectly bug-free. No, there has to be some way to attest for sure, because otherwise you don't trust it and you're never going to in that hotel. yeah, so these are all the problems that are caused by a lack of information in society. Moral hazard. What is moral hazard? It's another form of lack of information. And here it's lack of information about behavior. So for instance, what I may do is I may take a car insurance, and then once I know that my car is fully insured, then what am I going to do with it? Race with my friends, because I know that if I crash my car, then it doesn't matter. But so what the insurer would like to make sure is that I'm not going to do that. The insurer has in mind a normal risk that everyday people take. But then the fact that I take this insurance is going to modify my behavior because it's unobservable for the insurer. So, example. Where changes after insurance. So what's the solution for that? Yes, solution is you don't insure entirely. So the best market would be what I want is buy insurance in case I crash my car. So please just pay me back and don't change anything if I crash my car. No, it doesn't work because I cannot, as a consumer, be perfectly trusted in not in taking care of my car. So the insurance market and the insurance company is not going to trust me. And what they're going to say is, okay, if you can crash your car, we're going to pay, but not entirely. There's going to be some co-payments. So then if it's just a scratch, then it's just not worth it to ask your insurer about it. And yes, your premiums are going to go up. What? If what? Oh yeah, sure. Yes. So this is the last exactly this adverse selection. What is adverse selection? Is if people in a group vary in terms, say, of risk, but this is unobservable for insurers. So if my car is a red Corvette and I go take an insurance on that car, in principle, I could just like red Corvettes, but maybe that tells something about my tendency to like going fast with my car. I don't know if insurers have special policies specifically made for people with red Corvettes, but yeah, in general, the insurers what they try to know as much as they can is everything about you. So they want to know, are you somebody who's going to take risk or not? And so they discriminate for using any sort of mean. So we just saw a price discrimination earlier. Well, in the insurance market, it happens all the time. For instance, if you're so it depends where. In some instances the law prevents it, but in many instances, if they know that you're within some group that has a big risk, so like a young man in their early 20s or late teens, then they're going to say, oh, by the way, please come with me to this office and I'm going to have a specific contract for you, my friend, because I don't want to be paying all the time. And as you said, after 5 times, then I know for sure that we don't want you to be insured because you're just going to bankrupt the whole company. So solution is discriminate as much as possible. Yeah, in healthcare markets, health insurance. So they had in the US pre-existing condition. Also, sort of reason to not take you as somebody under that company. So yeah, so essentially they want to insure against risk by taking absolutely no risk. The best client they can have is somebody who's going to park their car in their garage and almost never use it, and when they use it, they go maximum 60, and that's it. So that's the best client for them. And they want to eliminate all the other risks. So yeah, by the way, so deductibles and co-payments, this was so they wrote a famous paper on this, and they got the Nobel Prize at the same moment as other people got it on, or Stiglitz at least got it for all the problems and information. Okay, so enough of this. But that's fascinating topic. Once you dive into that, you understand so much about everything, all the gimmicks that you have to go through when you take insurance, for instance. Yeah. Okay, so summary of the market figures we have seen. So firms with market power, we've seen this 3-4 classes or chapters ago, or yeah, yes. This is, yeah, somewhat bad, but not all that bad. Externality are quite bad. So if you think about the climate, yeah, but so about climate, so we have to know that it's a big thing, but not think collectively that we're just going to die in 10 years, otherwise it's just paralyzing. It's something that has to be addressed in the smartest possible way. Yeah, maybe people are alarmist just to get things going and get people rattled about it and create a reaction. But then if you overdo it, then people are just going to say, well, there's nothing to do. It's an unsolvable problem. No, it's a perfectly solvable problem if we get to it. And I think we're going to solve it, just too late. But anyways. Common property resources and public goods. So also this is somewhat bad, but solved and mostly solved in most instances. Yeah. Yeah. And when it's not, then yeah, things that tend to adapt. So if you may think about things like the movie industry or the music industry. So really, before there was nothing about it public in the sense that you have to go to the store and buy the disc, and there's no way for you to make a copy. So when the radio arrived, and then they said, "Oh, we're doomed. The people are never going to buy this. They're just going to listen to the radio." But people still bought discs, And then when the copies of cassettes became widely available, they thought, oh, that's it. People are just going to record from the radio. They did, but still the music industry adapted. And now even when there's wide sharing of music and you can just, so it's breathtaking how much music and movies have you're able to access so easily. So is the music industry dead? Well, it's changed a lot, but I wouldn't say it's dead by any means. There are many singers still nowadays. So all these problems about non-excludable goods, public goods. So sometimes they're not solved perfectly, but still the market adapts. Asymmetric information is very tricky. Yeah. All right. So these are the most common ways in which free markets fare. So I'm glad that you're still here. You didn't drop the class like 3 weeks ago because, or 4 weeks ago, because then you would have gone to your friends and say, oh, we learned that everything is perfect and you always get a Pareto efficient outcome and the markets work well all the time. But now you know all of the ways in which free markets don't work, and you need some sort of intervention from authorities or others to fix them. All right. Broader social goals. So this is extra things that we may think about that concern the economy as well. So even in the absence of market failure, so even if everything was a public free market with no public good, no externality, no information problem, so the government could still intervene in markets to achieve some broader goals. One of it, of course, is income distribution or redistribution. So the tax and transfer system redistributes income, as do many policies, such as employment insurance, child benefits. Policies are designed to redistribute income and often reduce economic. So this is something that we that we can. It's easy to create a model in which you are going to observe this trade-off. Between equality and efficiency. So why? Well, because simply, as a matter of fact, if I want to give money to somebody, I have to take it from somebody else. There would be a way to do that without affecting behavior. It's just take the same amount of money from everybody. But of course, we can't do that. So we have to take it in proportion to people's income. Otherwise, some people are just not going to have money. And as soon as you make it contingent on how much somebody earns or what somebody buys. So if you have value-added taxes on goods and services, then that creates distortions on the market because it discourages people from earning a high income or buying stuff. And so it creates inefficiency in the market, distortions on the market, like any other tax. So is there really this always this trade-off between equality and efficiency? There is up to a point, but it shouldn't be exaggerated. Why? Because income tax up to a point don't affect people's behavior all that much. So very rich people still work a lot. So we see that, yes, working is some part of your life. And if you view yourself as somebody who's going to work 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, or just 30 hours a week, maybe taxes are at the margin going to affect a bit your decision, but not all that much. So yeah, that's one thing. And then also, so there is great sometimes great efficiency gains from distribution. So, for instance, for Hungary children are very smart. Don't do well at school. So if good school can only be accessed by rich kids, then you're just cutting yourself off of a great pool of talent, of all the kids who have made the sole mistake of being born in a not so wealthy family and who could contribute very much to the society. So if you do redistribute, then in a way you're not going to create you're not going to create that much inefficiency in terms of the people's willingness to work, but you may create a great deal of efficiency in terms of giving people a chance to do as well as they can to their full potential. Yeah, so in a sense, life is complicated. I can do a very simple model in which I show that, yeah, there's this trade-off. In reality, so yeah, there's always a great rationale to redistribute well. Preferences for public provision. So some things like justice and police services are viewed by most people as being better provided by government than by the private sector. So why? Because they are public goods. Otherwise, what would that be? Well, it would mean that if I'm rich, then I can pay bodyguards to protect me. But otherwise, if I'm poor, I'm just going out there and fearing for my life. So it's the Wild West. And in that case, what would I do? Would I feel safe and start a business? No. And by the way, also, even if you're rich and you have bodyguards, so you're rich because you have many people who work, say, in your firm. So these people have to be protected as well. So you can pretty much see that at some point it makes a whole lot of sense to just centralize management of justice and security. So, all right, that's a long paragraph there, but to illustrate this. So again, security and justice is a public good, up to a point, because of course rich people have much better lawyers than poor people. So life is not perfect. Yeah. Protecting individuals from others. So that's this individual freedom generally does not include having the freedom to harm others. So just my freedom where that's just a general statement of living in a society. Some people don't really think too much about this. Masks, but well, not going to talk too much about that. All right, paternalism, what is this? Well, we have this other notion in economics where we do model economic agent, where we generally assume that they are rational. So, big assumption. Agents for consumers and firms, but especially consumer agents are rational. What does that mean? Well, it means that knowing all the opportunity I have, I'm going to pick the best policy that I can take for myself to make myself happy. What's wrong with this? Well, first of all, we know that collecting adequate information takes time, takes resources. So I cannot, for instance, if I had to, I don't know, pick life insurance, I cannot take like a week to just study in detail all of the 10 contracts I could be having. At some point, I had to just pick something. And also there is the so rational and well informed. So problems is lack of information and even sometimes behavior or irrational. What is this? I'm going to give you an example. So yeah, so this gives rise to the opportunity of paternalistic behavior or paternalism. So an example of this is yeah, to protect people against their own ignorance or folly. So example, so reckless investing in the stock market. So you cannot just take all your money and buy some put to some option that's going to be super risky, that's going to do something crazy next month. Normally, you cannot do that. Nowadays, it seems like with Wall Street bet and Bitcoin and anything, you can just do anything. So, but normally governments prevent you from doing that because they know that average people are just going to lose their money because they don't know what they're doing. So problem. So that's for that, but normally you should be protected. Another example is forcing people to save for retirement. So, oh, I just know that in French. So, Cigale et la fourmi. So, what's the title in English? You don't know? La Fontaine is a great French author. Okay, I'm just going to write it in French. Oh, wow. How do you write Cigale? Okay, never mind. Anyway, so the story is that there's one that the ant is very is going to save for a rainy day, but it's cicadas? I'm not sure. Yeah, anyway, so the other insect is not. And then what happens is the other insect just dies because they don't have enough food stored. So we don't want people to starve when they're old. So even though you would like to live fast and die young, well, no, the government is going to make a lot of effort to make you save. So if you start a job somewhere, they're going to put your money into some retirement saving account. Plus, your employer is going to chip in. So again, that's a way to not pay you directly, but pay you by having your employer put your money for later. So to make sure that you don't starve to death when you're old, if you happen to live up to until 90 years old. So again, that's to protect from yourselves. You could not do it. We could just give you all the money you like, and it would be your responsibility to save it for later. But perhaps some people would not do that. Another way in which we, yeah, so prevent your body or body parts. So, yeah. Prostitution is often called the oldest job in the world, but still it's a touchy topic. And yes, some people say it's my body, I can sell it if I like. But some people are uneasy about this. So again, it's not the job of economists to say what we should do or what should be our values, but still that's something that we observe, is that in some instances, we like to take decisions for people. Same thing with body parts. So should I be able to sell my hand or my kidney or my liver or my eye if I can make a lot of money? In principle, it's a private decision. I should have the complete information to know what's best for myself. And if I can help some rich person who's ready to pay $1 million for it, then it should be a transaction like any other. But yet we feel uneasy about it. So in many instances, we prevent people from doing it. So yeah, these are societal questions that are difficult to solve, but yeah, they exist. Social responsibility. So we also expect people to not do some stuff. So for instance, you shouldn't sell your vote. You should just go and vote. That's one. Okay. General principle. So even if free market are generated allocatively efficient outcome, if free markets generated allocatively efficient outcomes, they would be unlikely to generate outcomes consistent with most people's social goal. Why? Because yeah, people's social goal vary. Some people are libertarians, some are not. Ah, okay, the cicada and the I was right, it's cicada. So I can just go back and fix that. Okay. Yeah. Furthermore, there's often a trade-off between achieving these social goals and increasing allocative efficiency. So this is the same trade-off as we've been saying. So some people are more libertarian, some people prefer intervention. Oftentimes, when you're poor, then you say, no, philosophically, I think that the government should help people. And then where you're rich, you say, no, philosophically, I think that the government should not tax people and not help people. But yeah, of course, so you should be able to do that, whatever is your level of wealth. All right. So government intervention. So since markets sometimes do fail, and since even efficient markets produce some undesirable outcomes, there is scope for governments to intervene in digital ways. So this is essentially, so we've described there all of the ways in which the government could be intervening. However, it's not always perfect. So for many types of government activity, cost-benefit analysis may be helpful to in considering whether we should do it or not. So whether governments should successfully intervene. So cost-benefit analysis is an approach for evaluating the desirability of a given policy based on comparing opportunity cost with social benefit, with total benefit. So yeah, in the private sector, so a cost-benefit analysis is normally done before starting a business. So the question is, will I make a profit or not? And that's an important question. That's the question that the bank is going to ask you if you want a loan to start your business. So please prove me that as best as you can that yes, you're going to be able to produce at a low enough cost and you have enough people who want to buy it on the market that you're going to make a profit. Well, turns out that this sort of cost-benefit analysis is what everybody does or should do. So all of the decisions that you make in your life, whether you think about it or not, you always think, okay, well, should I get out of bed and go to listen to this lecture today or stay in bed? Well, cost benefit, well, the cost of getting out of bed is it's cold today, or there are always costs, but you think, oh yeah, there's the benefit that I'm going to listen to a very interesting lecture. So you made this decision knowing more or less the cost and benefits. And lastly, the government should be doing the same. So all of the decisions that government take, they should be taken in full knowledge of the cost and the benefits. So governments should do the same. So example, should we have a turning for complexity or not? So how do governments decide what, or how do political parties decide whether it's a good policy or not? Is it going to give me some votes in the region of Quebec or not? So that's almost surely their decision. So if they get elected and they had that in their platform, then the third lake is going to happen, whether or not it's a good thing. And if they think that it's not going to help them to promote this project, then they're not going to do it. But in principle, we should have cost-benefit analyses in every important decision that we do, or in environmental for environmental projects. Yeah, for many different projects, we should be able to just say for the best of with the best knowledge we have, do we think it's beneficial or not? Because all of these things always imply trade-off, which sometimes are not easy to compare. So for instance, if I have $1 million, should I do something that would reduce the number of deaths on the roads by 2 every year? Or should I invest it in bettering the education system? That's a very tough decision. If you ask the family of the person who died on the road from an accident, they're going to say, well, it's the value of that life, that person's life is invaluable for me. You should be willing to spend all your budget on it. Sadly, there are economists in the room who are going to say, yeah, but everything has to do with cost benefit and constraints. We would like to have an infinite amount of anything, but everything costs something, so we have to make tough decisions. And even human life doesn't have an infinite value. And so all of this should be decided with cost benefit analysis. So it's a super hard exercise, but an exercise which many economists do regularly, that you can spend like 300 pages just talking about this cost benefit analysis of some project. By the way, I teach environmental economics, and yeah, we are. So I give the cost benefit analysis to the students, and oftentimes find interesting things. Yeah, oftentimes. All right. Tools of government intervention. So public provision. So this is, yeah, you would say it's the redistribution. Sometimes it's called redistribution in kind, or yeah. So example, education, healthcare, yeah, so this is a very popular way of redistributing. Why? Because in a way you are not always checking whether somebody is poor enough to get it. So what you're saying is, so we are all in this together. Everybody's going to get sick at some point. So let's just pitch in to each and every one of our abilities and create this public healthcare system. And then when you get sick, you have access to it. But of course, very rich people are going to say, yes, but I had to wait a few months to have my operation. So I think it's unfair that because I can pay, so I'm going to the United States to pay for myself. Yes, okay, good for you, but for most people, we cannot afford this. So it's good that we have this universal system. Same for education. So yeah, we have a public system. On top of it, we have a private system. But yeah, this is it should be a good enough service for most people. In Scandinavian countries, they usually do that. And by comparison, in some other places, especially in the United States, they have means testing. So every time you want something, you have to show that you're miserable enough or poor enough to have the right to get it. So you can imagine that doesn't give you a big incentive to better your life, because you know that you're going to lose access to all these free stuff. So yeah, it's from an incentive point of view, it's not super popular among economists. Yeah, redistribution programs, so that's especially taxation. There could be something like universal income. So that's a thorny question, universal income, because okay, everybody would like to have a universal income of $5,000 a year, but if you're rich, then you're the one who's going to have to pay for that. So you're just not just printing money for free. So you have to get it somewhere. And so your universal income may be plus 5,000, but minus 20,000. I don't know. So it's universal, but it's really just a huge redistribution. And some people want universal income as a way of saying, oh yeah, but now we're going to get rid of education, get rid of healthcare, get rid of everything else, and all you get is some money that you can spend on anything. And again, economists are going to point out that these systems are designed in very specific ways because of all the market failures that we've seen before. So it's not all, really not all that clear that universal income would be a positive aspect to it. There are many experiments, but that exist. So it's a debate that's ongoing. So regulation, so laws. I'm not going to talk too much around that. Yeah, let's see, tax breaks. So sometimes it's not that you receive money, but it's that you get to pay less income tax. Yeah, that's a super long chapter. Well, the thing is, all the questions are very, very interesting. All right, so government intervention, I'm going to try to speed up, so at least we finish this today. So we're going to be just fine with the program. Government intervention is generally imperfect and often fails. So again, if you're poor, you say, or if you're rich, you say, I told you governments can never do anything right, so we should just get rid of it. If you are poor and you take advantage of some program, then what should be your response is, yeah, I know, but it's still giving me something, so let's try and fix it, making as good as possible. So not get rid of it, but improve its working as best as we can, reduce corruption. So yeah, every time you have debates, everybody has some prior opinion based on what on their own lives. So yeah. And yeah, so economists distinguish between direct costs and indirect costs. Yeah, so indirect costs are all all the costs that have to do with not functioning, the government not functioning well. Yeah, so all sorts of government intervention use real resources and hence impose direct costs. So this is taxes that may be distortionary, for instance, but indirect costs are yeah, all of the other problems that that can go on. So yeah, so changes in, yeah, so those are all direct costs. So changes in cost of production, cost of compliance, so making sure that laws are respected, rent seeking. Yeah, and by the way, this cost of compliance is not at all small. So yeah, policing costs a lot of money, and oftentimes you may have a law in the book, but if you don't have enough budget to make it be respected, then it's exactly like if you didn't have any law. Rent seeking is, of course, yeah, government corruption. Corruption. Government official. So, out of curiosity, do you know more or less which countries are the least corrupt in the world? So there's, I think it's Transparency International, or yeah, there are multiple indexes, but yeah, more or less. So I've just checked before the class the least corrupt places in the world. Canada is not bad, not the best. Yes, so just going to say it. So these corrupt countries are Denmark, always Denmark, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Singapore. Yeah, these are always working very, very well. And what I like about these is that they take away all the arguments of it's impossible to make government work. Well, look at these countries. They work extremely well, and officials are extremely well. They do a good job, and they are not very. There is very little corruption. So if they manage to make it work, then there's no way that you cannot make it work in anywhere. It's just a matter of having a good culture. So Canada is not bad at all. So we're not at the top, but yeah, I think it's like number 13th. Yeah, 13th. So it's quite good actually. Yeah, and the most corrupt, I'm not going to name them. It's not. It's super sad. So many places. Well, places where governments haven't existed for a while. That it's just what you need to have a non-corrupt government is no war and time. So yeah, if no coup, no violence, and then with time, the things improve. All right. Government failures. So yeah, most important cause of government failure arise from the nature of the government's own incentive. So this is a link to what we were talking about. So moral hazard. Or rather moral hazard, but yeah, perfect information again. And what we call principal agent problem. So what's a principal agent problem? Well, it's when I want to delegate some task, but sadly, I'm not able to observe perfectly how the task is performed. So if, for instance, I hire somebody, if that person doesn't do well, I should just be able to fire that person. But if I'm not too sure if I don't know, if there was a big accident on that day, did that person cause it or not? So maybe if I just fire the person and it wasn't her fault, then I shouldn't do that. So the problem is really a problem again of observing. And at the macro scale, the government is exactly that. So we are the principals. We put people up there in charge. It's a representative democracy, and we ask them, please manage well the country. But obviously, we're not able to observe perfectly what they're doing. So we don't know when they're just taking some money and putting it in their pocket or their socks for their next election. So some of you may remember the big scandals we had in Montreal elections like 10 years ago or something. So yeah, that's the problem. Is the government itself is a big principle, and we cannot observe perfectly what they do. So elected officials, they should maximize the well-being of average people, but they especially want to maximize their votes. And civil servants, we would like them to do a very professional job, and yet sometimes what they do is they maximize their salaries and their influence. And then voters too. In a sense, voters also should seek in some way to vote for the person who is going to be the best for the country as a whole. But oftentimes not. So just out of curiosity, so so somebody has a big priority in mind. What's your biggest priority when you go to vote next time for the government of Canada, for instance? Yes? Yeah, environment. Something else? That's just the only thing you care about. I don't trust you. Yeah, just the environment. All right. So, so what do we care about? The environment. So I'm not going to ask you your age, but I'm going to guess that you are not too old. So would your answer be the same if you were 60 years old? Probably not. So the environment is one. So, what I've heard last time was the debt. Yeah, so education. These are the sort of things that people tend to say, and why? Well, because they are important for young people. But then, if for older people, what they vote for is healthcare system and low taxes. So your priority depends a lot on where you are in life or how wealthy you are. But at some point, it shouldn't. At some point in democracy, you shouldn't have, because otherwise, it's just a dictatorship of the majority. It's whoever is a majority is just decides for the rest of us. And by the way, that's in some countries uh, where you have big cleavage between subpopulations. To some extent, you could say that in Quebec we have that because we have uh, big French population and quite important English population. But yeah, we tend to have sometimes people who are very nationalist and very pro-French, but sometimes less so. So it's a healthy democratic debate in some ways. But of course, in some countries, then there's just some, the worst is some minority that holds power and decides for everybody else, no matter their taste. That just becomes a dictatorship. All right. Government as monopolists. So governments face the same problem of cost minimization that private firms do, but often they are like a huge firm. So they are like a monopoly producers without shareholders. So they face the same organizational problems as large corporations do. So sometimes we may feel that governments, they don't know what they're doing, but then just go look at some big corporation out there, and if you peek under the hood, then you may realize that it may look like a mess too. So it's just administrating a huge organization is just very, very difficult. So again, we shouldn't be too harsh on governments. Yeah, so they tend to use relatively rigid rules and respond slowly to change. So yeah, so a good example of that is yeah, so recommendations for COVID-19, which are very slow to be updated. So even initially, it was very clear that masks were useful because in Asian countries, they've used masks for so long, and it became clear that COVID-19 was transmitted mainly by air. But still, it took a while for just people to say, yes, yes, use masks, they're useful. So it's not that they're evil, but it takes a long time to update policies, so to change rules. So that's the way it is in a big organization. All right. So how much should government intervene? So yeah, So this is, we've talked a bit about it. So evaluating the cost and benefit of current intervention requires a comparison of the private economic system as it actually works, or might work ideally with the pattern of government intervention as it actually performs, not as it might perform ideally. So what is this targeting? So then it's against extremists. So essentially what they're saying is don't say communism would be even if it were implemented correctly. Or maybe that's true, but so we have to look at how it's actually performing, and it's not great. And don't say everything would be perfect. Everything was prioritized. So no, we have to look at the free market as it's working and as it's not working. So nothing, no system is perfect. That's the goal is to pick and choose the best mix and hopefully have a good result. Okay. Oh wow, that's the last slide. Wow, that chapter is super long. So a question about what we've discussed. No, all right. I have seen something. Oh, I'm mostly good, I must say. Oh, one detail I could add is, yeah, so this is this whole thing, elected officials seek to maximize their vote. So this is a branch called political economy. So this is not looking at how regulation influence the economy, but rather how the economy and how votes can influence officials' decision, and this in turn is going to influence the economy. All right. So, anyways, we're at the end. So next time we start the next chapter, which is on trade. So that's also jumping to some completely new topic, but I think it's an interesting one. All right, so thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. And sorry for the bad sound initially, I didn't realize.